How to Make a Killing is a comedy that follows Beckett Redfellow, played by Glenn Powell. He's a working class citizen who just so happens to come from a wealthy family that he never knew. Tired of living like a commoner, he starts eyeing that fortune, but in order for him to be the heir to his family's estate, his other relatives need to be out of the picture. So he starts hunting them down one after another while trying to keep a low profile to avoid suspicion. So this movie is a black comedy that sort of plays with class consciousness and is really a story about contentment. It follows a guy who just wants to make his way up the ranks to be a man of wealth and status. Beckett is the embodiment of those who feel they deserve the most in life and won't settle for simply just having enough. This movie flirts with the idea that in order to live in excess though, you have to step on a few necks and push others out of the race. So it's covertly shedding light on the fact that thriving in a capitalist society and getting rich often demands cutthroat behavior where you have to kick out the competition. But of course, being a black comedy for this movie's premise, that concept is being presented quite literally. Beckett is on a mission to kill the other family members standing in his way. So it's a dark and silly premise, which sounds like it should be promising, sick and twisted fun, but honestly, there's really not much fun to be had with this one. As far as humor goes, it's pretty dry. There's a couple laughs in there, where you just go, and just blow a little bit of air out of your nose. You can definitely see the attempts at quirky humor, but it just doesn't quite get there. For example, there is a conversation in this movie that plays out something like this. But what happens when it pays off? Well, it pays off. But then what? What do you mean? I mean, this conversation was framed like it was supposed to be silly and awkward, but it just came off as a plain misunderstanding. Definitely awkward, but not really in a tasteful or humorous way. The movie sort of starts at the end with Beckett narrating the movie by telling it as a story to someone. They try to pull a couple of narrator gags where basically he's narrating what's happening, but then he gets interrupted by what we're seeing on screen. Again, all of these attempts at jokes are very mild. Some of them might make you chuckle, but nothing is gonna make you turn over laughing. As for the dark humor, it mostly relies on the subject matter alone to serve as the black comedy, with little done to try and amplify that. Like if somebody is being a dick right before they get murdered, they're only mildly cruddy. The movie doesn't frame them as total rich assholes who you want to see under the guillotine. They're more so just unpleasant people who you would not be the most fond of. Really, everyone in this movie is pretty vanilla, starting with our MC Beckett Redfellow. This has to be the most uninteresting character I have seen Glenn Powell play. Being a handsome and fit guy, he definitely fits the role of a charming, rich classist, but as far as his strengths as a comedy actor goes, they're not really being used here. Even worse though, this character is just kind of plain. He's pretty basic when it comes to his motives, and he doesn't really have any other characteristics, so overall, he's pretty boring. Margaret Qualley is also playing a pretty boring character here, which I honestly would have thought impossible before seeing this. Because honestly, even her most boring characters were still made somewhat interesting by the charm that she naturally brings with her on-screen presence. This might be the first time I've seen one of her movies and thought that she felt like a miscast. Even the trademark Margaret Qualley lip bite in this movie felt completely out of place. Her character Julia is a romantic interest of Beckett's, but with a twist. I'll leave it at that to avoid spoilers, but the role she plays in this movie is pretty two-dimensional and doesn't really allow her strengths as an actor to shine either. The ways in which Julia is quirky actually play against them. Rather than her presence being light, warm, or silly, she's always either totally plain or pretty discomforting with nothing to ease the tension. This movie's biggest shortcoming is probably the dynamics between Beckett and those he is headhunting. Again, very plain, partially because we just don't spend that much time with most of those targets. The second one is the exception. There's a lot more time spent with him, and he presents some qualities that make him kind of a fun target. He's pretty dumb and kind of a tool, but those dials were set a little bit low. As for the visuals, this movie definitely could have benefited from more polished cinematography or more color. Handheld camera movement and muted colors absolutely have their place in cinema, but for a comedy that's trying to make fun light out of a dark situation, it felt pretty drab. Like this aesthetic would pair better with neorealism or a character drama, or if the intention was for it to be a pretty serious movie with just a slightly comedic undertone. None of this is to say that the movie is completely terrible. It's not cringy, there's plenty of intrigue and even some surprises, like there's a big one in the third act you probably won't see coming. So there's enough going on with this movie to hold your interest. It always leaves you in anticipation of something, it's just rarely ever entertaining. So in the end, this movie was barely fine. The incredibly basic humor and intrigue naturally keep it afloat, but it just never truly entertains. It's one to play in the background on one of your active streaming services while you're cooking or working on your laptop, but it's not one that you need to lock in for and give your full attention to. Okay, so it's been almost 2 months since my last review. I did make a little short a couple weeks ago explaining why I have been on a little bit of a hiatus. I hope you saw that. It started with me just wanting to take a couple weeks in January off, ended up taking the whole month off, and then ended up taking most of February off as well. So I am a video editor, like that's what I do at my day job, and making content all day at work and then coming home and making more content can be pretty exhausting. So I've just been giving myself a little bit of a break. And in that, I feel like the wind got knocked out of my sails a little bit. So I'm really hoping that with this video, the spark is gonna reignite and then I'm just gonna start firing away with reviews again. It's been a much needed break because honestly, the internet is, in my opinion, not a healthy place to live. And, you know, in order for me to be good at my job, my actual job, I need to kind of live there a little bit. And how did I get into this business? I really loathe internet culture a lot of the time. So yeah, I just wanted to actually take a break and live my life, give some more attention to the people in my life and the other interests that I have. But I don't want to quit doing this because I love making reviews and I love movies. And this, honestly, having this channel is just a wonderful outlet for me to express that love. And it also keeps me on my toes and keeps me constantly watching new releases. And I love that. So hopefully we'll be back in full swing. I'm not gonna make any promises, but yeah, hopefully I'll be back next week with a review of The Bride. I think it comes out next week. Yeah, I'm not gonna double check. Bye.